Okay, everybody, good afternoon. How are you feeling today? Yeah, thank you so much for coming to this webinar. My name is Mikyoung. Let me do some special thing for you guys. Thank you for coming. Yay, TGIF Friday, right? Yeah, today we have 3 topics to cover. So do you know what they are? So first one is structure of the manuscript, right? The manuscript writing, the basic form. And second one, we will cover the use of voice, right, in writing, which is quite tricky, but I'm gonna deliver really important things so that also you can remember really well. And then third topic would be about how to write effective abstract and cover letter, okay? So for these 3 topics, this class will run for 3 hours, okay? But between, we will have 10 minutes break. So we will have 2 breaks, right? So we start now, and this lecture will go on till 50, and then 50 to the 2 o'clock. There will be 10 minutes break, and another 10 minutes break. Okay. So while I'm lecturing, if you have any questions or any comments, please feel free to leave in the chatting room. Or if you want to, use your voice, of course, you can do that too. Then we will check them later and talk about them together. All right. So can we start now? Is it clear voice? Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Okay, first topic is the structure of a manuscript. So about me, a little bit about myself. So I'm actually working for Dongsin University. Like, it is located in Naju, but it's close to Gwangju. I live in Gwangju. And also I'm an academic trainer and consultant at Editage, like now. So I give English manuscript writing workshops, also how to publish effectively. So we have a lot of workshop items. So I give this lecture to the usual masters and doctoral students all over the country, in our country, and also some researchers in national institutes. Plus, for the doctors and nurses, like medical staff in our big hospitals. So I give these lectures. And since I'm also related into English teaching area, I'm associated with Korea TESOL right here, teaching English part. So I have a little background is there, right? So have you ever heard of survival of the fittest? Of course, right? You've heard this one. And who said this one? Charles Darwin, right? And like this expression in academia we are in, there is also similar expression, publish or perish. So we do our research really hard, and then we have some outcomes. But if we don't publish, they will perish, which is that story, right? So it's kind of survival world. And welcome to academia. So you are in this area, this world. If you look at this person, he has something in his hand. This is manuscript, so he's so ready to submit. Okay? So till now, actually, he has put a lot of effort and hours, right? Very difficult times he has, like planning the research and implement research, and then writing. And if he's maybe a non-native English speaker, like most of us, probably another difficult times in writing manuscript in English, right? Anyway, he's now here, and from here, kind of another journey starts. So if we actually submit our manuscript to the journal, the first goal would be acceptance, right? To get accepted to this journal. But to get that goal, you see so many obstacles on the way. It's not easy, it's difficult time. And even after getting our paper accepted, there is a certain time to get published, right? Depending on the journals, it may take, I don't know, maybe 1 year, 2 years. If it's open access journal, maybe 6 months. That's the probably earliest, but usually maybe 1 year or 2 years these days. So it's a long time, and we need a lot of patience and create every good assets. So we are actually doing academic writing. So I show you 2 columns now. So can you think of which one is myth, right? Something we misunderstand. And which one is the fact? I give you 10 seconds. Can you choose? Okay, good. So these ones, most people think about academic writing, right? Academic writing should use complicated sentence structure and should include a lot of complex words. Complex words means sophisticated words, also we call heavy words or difficult words, right? But this is actually some myth. Okay? The fact is that, of course, we use advanced technical terminology in our own discipline, and we also express complex ideas and procedures, but in plain, simple language. So you might be wondering what the plain, simple language or words are. But today's workshop is not focusing on this one, but next week, then I'm going to talk about some of the plain, simple language issues. So come to the next workshop as well, okay, next week. There's another myth about voiceover use. Okay? So many people think the use of the first person, which is active voice, should be avoided in academic writing because it is informal. So academic writing is formal writing. So people think, in formal writing, we have to use past voice form. What do you think? Actually, it used to be, but now the trend is changing. So these days, the active voice is recommended up to 70%. Okay, so that is the fact. And about more details, we will cover this one in the second session today. And also, we think like simple words are not good enough in academic writing. Heavy words or complicated or complex or sophisticated words should be used. We talked about this, right? But no, plain simple words are totally fine, even preferred. Okay. So this one shows so many considerations we have to think of, like from research to publication process, whole process. Okay. So ethics, you gotta think about ethics, citation, or kind of always related to ethics issue, right? Plagiarism, best practices, and authorship on writing. Now, among these considerations, today we are going to cover only this part, writing, right? Really small part. And also, there are publications on publications. That means there are so many other things we have to consider when it comes to publication. So for you, it would be really helpful if you can find some publications on publications and get some more information. Okay, so today's outline covers 2 things. First one is structure. And the second one is the generatives, which I'm more interested in giving. So I really try to deliver these generatives. How can I say it? From the bottom of my heart, seriously. Because when I was in master's program or doctorate programs, we didn't have this kind of workshop. So now when I think about that, if we had this kind of workshop at the time, it would have helped us a lot, right? So that's why to the master's or doctoral students, I actually like to give these tips. So please stay till the end. Maybe this part, I may not able to talk about everything in the first session. Maybe it can go on to the second part when we start the use of voice. Okay. So first on structure. I'm sure you've read a lot of papers so far. So this is overall structure, right? And among this one, today we are going to talk about the body part. Okay. Also look at this part. Every research paper is different and has different purposes. So depending on your disciplines. So for example, are you in a social sciences field, or are you in natural sciences field, engineering field? So depending on your disciplines, some of the sections may not be needed. So for example, for the social science field, this part is mandatory usually, right? Introduction, literature review, and method, result, discussion, conclusion. But for the natural science, which are published in SCI index journals a lot, and usually literature review is included in the introduction. So the most basic structure of a scientific manuscript is called IMRED structure. But this is not really special. It's an acronym for introduction, method, result, and discussion conclusion. It's easy to explain this way for the beginners. If we explain this IMRED in some kind of analogy, then it would be like this hourglass. So, hourglass starts really broadly, right? So this part will be introduction part, and then it goes narrow down. Will be method, result section, and in this section, we put specific things. Okay? And then finally, getting broader again, and this part will be discussion and conclusion. For this, to understand better, I will offer more examples from the actual manuscript, so you will get to understand better. So a little bit more details about introduction. So in this part, we have to talk about our topics and also why you want to research this part. So you have to show strong motivation for your research and also purpose, hypothesis, right? And the method, result, these sections are a little bit, I would say a little bit, maybe less difficult among these sections, right? And then finally, discussion part. This one is quite difficult to write. And here we have to interpret, extend our results, and we gotta draw inferences. And also we have to show what we've learned from this study, which is called implication. Okay? And also all the research, every research has limitations. So we also suggest some future recommendations. So now we are going to check every section, right? So for the introduction section, this one should talk about topics, your main topics to research, and also why do you do this research. So introduction part should be the first thing we write actually, and the last thing we finish. So myself and also other researchers I asked, and a lot of them think the introduction part is quite hard, maybe most difficult part to write, even they say. So I also think this is quite difficult. And it should we start introduction first, but to wrap up nicely, we have to wait until we finish every part except introductions, all right? Method, result, discussion, conclusion, and we come back to the introduction, and finally we can wrap up nicely. These are aims and contents of the introduction. So this introduction part should identify the topic and provide sufficient background for it. And here we focus on research questions. We have to state research questions, which are purposes of the study. And also you got to highlight why this study is important. So introduction usually is written in 3 steps. Step 1, establish research area. Step 2, identify a research problem. Step 3, your paper becomes a solution. So in the step 1, we establish an area to research by highlighting the importance of the topic. And we also make the general statements about the topic. Try to remember general statements here, general statements. Okay? And also, I forgot to tell you, the hourglass we saw right in the beginning, please remember that, the hourglass, the general thing. So here, general statements. This part will be, the starting of the hourglass. You remember, like it was broad, right? So this part will be step 1 in introduction. And step 2, we identify a research problem or research niche, okay? Some kind of research gap. There are some existing studies which are which researched kind of similar topic as mine, but you see there are some inconsistent results. So you decide, okay, there are some inconsistent results, so I would like to focus on this part. And then step 3, your paper becomes a solution. So in step 3, the most important thing is you have to state your purpose very, very strongly and clearly. Gotta outline the key statements of your study, the highlighting important research results. So this is a funnel structure, right? Funnel structure. And this is the upper part of the hourglass we saw, right? So introduction is like the upper part of the hourglass. So we start with general statements and narrow down, and we state research problem here. And then we draw the readers to this point of the study. So this red spot, please remember this, so I'm gonna talk about this later. And this red spot means we have to state our research question, which is a purpose of the study. Then we can match here step 1, step 2, step 3. So from now on, I'm gonna introduce some sentences from the manuscript and then talk about step 1, about more details. So step 1, establish the research area. In funnel structure was a really wide area. And this step 1, general statements are key here. So examples I'm showing from now on, even though I don't mention it, can you actually pay attention to the tense? So here, present tense, present continuous tense. And here, present perfect, right? Present perfect tense. So you can see some bold letters here. So example here, the cumulative effects of environment pollution on climate change and ecological deterioration are growing prominent. So this is considered as a general statement about environment pollution. And second part, the delta function has played an enormous role in the development. Maybe you don't know about this one, but in this research area, this one is probably general statements. Now, step 2 is to identify research problem. Right? Here, specific is the key. Right? That means about the research gap, also about something is unknown. So example you see here, also check the tense, present perfect, present. So many Chinese researchers have studied the case hypothesis with time series data. Their findings are inconclusive and sometimes contradictory. And here there are specific statements, specific research citation, right? And also the results are still inconclusive, even contradictory. That means there is a research gap in this area. And however, the evaluation of the coefficient is not obvious and has been the subject of some disagreement. You see here, not obvious yet, right? It's not conclusive. Also, some disagreement. So this says, well, there is a research gap, so I want to research this part. And the step 3, your paper becomes a solution. In the funnel structure, do you remember red spot, right? There is the area, that is the step 3. And here we write the most key statement. So for example, you've read a paper saying the purpose of this paper, right? Starting like that, or this paper aims to work, right? To do something. So that would be in step 3. There are various tenses we can use in introduction, but mostly we use present tense, present perfect tense for these reasons. So I want you to check this on later. A second part, method. And before I start this part, I'm going to talk about 2 common things in method and result sections. Okay, so this is my idea. So number 1 common thing, number 1 is these 2 parts are less difficult compared to other sections, right? Because we just write what we've done, right? How we did. So there is no much thinking process in this in writing these sections, so it's less difficult. It's not easy because English writing is always difficult for the non-native speakers, especially. That's the number 1 common thing, I think. And second one is about tense. Okay, so basic tense will be past tense in method and result section. Okay, that's the second common thing. But exceptional, there is present tense we have to use, right? But that one I'm going to explain in the middle. So the aims of the method section here. Method section is usually explained as a cookbook. Right? Do you like cooking, by the way, everybody? Cooking? I do like cooking, but I'm not able to cook a lot these days. So my family is very, very unhappy, actually. They are not happy with my cooking performance these days, I think. So anyway, why the method section is a cookbook? You've seen cookbook, right? But these days, maybe YouTube channels, you can see a lot of cooking channels. So if you look at those things, they explain every ingredient, right? Very, very detailed things, also recipe as well. So like the cookbook, method section should be really, really sufficient enough. So we list a lot of detailed information in this part. So for example, what kind of procedures you are doing it, and very, very specific ones, enough detail, also statistical method or analysis. The detail, again, use the detail, also IRB for the ethical considerations. So if your participants are human beings, right, usually you need the approval from IRB. Yeah. The content of the method section uses the design, participants, data collection procedure, and also ethical consideration. So if we are using some measures, well, this is for the Korean version, but if you are doing research in your own language, and you gotta see like there are some validated version of your own language. Otherwise, we have to explain how those things are translated, right? Very, very detailed things. Also, last one, analysis. So in the method section, some examples. I will just take a look at this part briefly, because this is not really difficult. So here, well, first of all, pay attention to the tense. So do you remember what kind of tense was the basic one in method and result section? Past, right? So we conducted a retrospective multi-center surveillance study of all provincial hospitals in Northeast Thailand. So here is the design, right? So, and all subjects are not the human beings, but the hospitals. Second example is talking about collecting data, very detailed ones. Also got to write down the collection period. And also next one, past. So some analysis And this is software, right? Stata version software program to do some analysis. So again, the past tense should be the basic one, but the present tense. So when you actually read some papers, the research in the result part, you may see the sentence like table 1 shows, figure 1 displays, right? Something like this one. So these ones, you can see table 1 or figure words, like you can see really visually in the main screen, right? So for this case, if you can see something really visually, then you use present tense. Other than that, you can stick to the past tense in method and result sections. All right, so result section, what did you find? So in this part, of course, we explain results. And in result section, if we use figures, tables very effectively, then we can write these result sections quite nicely. Something we shouldn't report every result. Instead, we include only result pertinent to the questions we introduced first. Okay? There may be some other results, of course, which we didn't expect. Then you can decide if the extra result is very important or you think like it's very meaningful, then you can include in your result writing. But usually some questions or research questions, right, that you proposed first, and you stick to those questions, the results. And you should not include only positive findings that support your hypothesis. Instead, you have to report both positive and negative results. So some results, of course, some results support your hypothesis, then of course you include, but some results which don't support your hypothesis, you still gotta include them. And also for the discussion, you have to go a little deeper for these results. And you shouldn't include all your data in the text. Instead, you summarize your data into tables and figures. This result section, just briefly, you can check later. And also here, the past tense. And about a past tense, right? Again, emphasizing past tense. Also when to use present tense, exceptionally. All right. So now, discussion and conclusion, last part of in red. Here we have to write our findings, the interpretation, right? And also what we've learned from our study, which is called implications. And this part, actually, we have to spend a lot of time and also brainstorming with co-authors. Right? This is also, we cite a lot of previous studies. So aims of this part will be, we have to state a clear answers to the research questions we proposed in the beginning. And we have to support, explain the results. And if the results are not supporting your hypothesis, then you have to also defend, okay, for the results. And we establish limitations according to them, also suggest future recommendations, implications, and why the findings are important. So to explain results, can you read this part by yourself and then try to understand what that means? I give you 30 seconds. This one. Okay, time is up. So you got to comment on whether the results were expected. This means if we get expected result, that means this result support hypothesis, right? So of course we present explanations for this one. But if we get some unexpected findings, which means that our results don't support the hypothesis, then we gotta go into greater depth when explaining, which is more difficult, right? But we have to think a lot and we have to brainstorm, and we gotta find more papers, try to find more papers which produce the similar result, like our unexpected findings. And then when you find those papers, you read them, especially in discussion part, and what they wrote, and then maybe they might have more suggestions for the future studies. So you can use those discussions in your discussion. Okay. Also, to discuss our results, we use a lot of previous research findings. And also we gotta get some deductions here. But do you see general? And now, can you bring it back, bring your hourglass before, bring it back here. So when we finish our main script with the discussion, it goes broader again, right, this part. So we should deduct a claim for how the result can be applied more generally, and also general claim from our results. And the main conclusion, of course, limitation and future suggestions. There are common errors we are making in the discussion section. And we shouldn't write another introduction. So when we start discussion section, usual discussion, we talk about our results, right? But before we start talking about the result, there is a one paragraph that says about the research, just a little bit introduction, and also main findings. It doesn't, the first summary paragraph shouldn't be wrong, maybe with maximum 5 sentences, and that's totally fine. Then we start discussing first result, right? Result 1. But sometimes we start like we write totally new introduction part. So we gotta be careful about that. And we should not introduce new results, right? All the results should be written in the result section first, and then we repeat the result in the discussion section. But when we repeat, we don't repeat the exact sentence. Sentence should be a little bit paraphrased. So the content is same, but the sentence should look different. Right. So also in discussion part, we have to show certainty about our result. So there are 3 kinds of claim that you can make. So basic claim, we use past tense. And then for the strong claim, I'm sure you've learned this grammar point. Must have PP. Have you ever heard this grammar point? Koreans learn this way, must have PP, must have past participle. So this talks about you are very strong about the past result, and also you have very strong idea about that. So if you have this idea, this kind of strong, if you want to make the strong claim, you can use this grammar point. But these days, researchers are being very careful to use the must-have PP expression, because later when their studies are repeated, they might produce very inconsistent results, right? So researchers are being careful, so they tone down by using may have PP instead of this one. But it's okay if you want to use this one, if you have a really strong idea about your results, then of course you can use it. And I've seen a lot of papers also which use this must have PP expression. So it's totally up to researchers. And some examples from the manuscript, and here in discussion section, we have to say the clear answer to the questions. So this part will be question, right? They tested if migratory bats, in particular Pipistrellus naturalis, respond to artificial green light at night during migration. And this part will be answer. So they found out migratory bats responded actually. And here also we have to support, explain, and defend the results. And this is a quite common expression, right? Probably because, they can use because, but probably because, right? To explain things. Also, this expression be consistent with, or be in line with, or be inconsistent with, they are very common to use in the discussion section. Also, we establish limitations, implications, and importance of findings. This word is very, very popular to use in the discussion. So highlight or emphasize, stress or accentuate, right? Underline like that. These ones we can use, we can paraphrase these verbs. And also confirms the importance, suggest. Suggest means here indicate. So very popular word to use also. Suggest, indicate, imply, using these words a lot. Also limitation plus future recommendations. In discussion section, also there are many tenses we can use. Especially, don't forget to use future tense because we have to suggest future recommendations in our discussion section. There's some more examples here. I wanted to check them later. Okay, I guess you got some materials, right? Also my examples. Now, how are you guys doing so far? Are you following okay? All right. So this part, as I mentioned before, like in the beginning, I really like these tips to give to masters and doctoral students. So Paul Sylvier, who is a professor in psychology at North Carolina University in the States, said, writing a journal article combines all the elements that deter motivation. So we are doing this writing, right? Writing journal article. So I think this sentence means like difficult, right? Difficult. For Sylvia, even he was a native speaker, but for a lot of us who are non-native English speakers, we have more difficult time, right, in writing in English. So why is it so difficult? Because he says the probability of success is low. By the way, what do you think the success is in academia? What is success? What could be index of success in academia? Well, earning a lot of money? Maybe that could be, that could come secondary. But usually the famous index of success in academia is publications. But publications is not easy and there are a lot of rejections, right? And it takes a lot of time. Also, you go through really difficult time here. Also, doing research is fun, but writing about the research is not. And Paul Sylvia also wrote a book about how to write a lot and still have a life. By the way, he produced a lot of publications, and also he's making a lot of he's giving a lot of speeches about writing more effectively. Okay. So in this book, he says the number one barrier, like why we don't write a lot, that is, people say this way, he says. So he says, we don't have the time to write. Okay. But he thinks this is wrong. So he thinks, no, that's wrong. We have to say this way. Well, we don't make time for writing. What do you think? I think he's really right. There's time, but we just don't make time for writing, or we don't make time for exercise, or we don't make time to meet my friends, right? Our friends like that. So number one solution would be so easy, make time. But of course, saying make time is very easy, but it's very difficult how to make time and actually how to write. So this part, he explained what he has done when he was in a master's program or the graduate school students. He even had part-time jobs. So now I'm going to explain 4 tips for researchers on tackling the task of writing a manuscript. So this will help you how to make time for your writing. Okay, so there's number one, prime yourself for writing. Number two, set a fixed time. Number three, set a target of 500 words. And the last one, write without stopping to edit. So let's get into the first one. Prime, prepare yourself for writing. So before sitting down to write, you gotta talk to somebody about the work you are going to write up as a research paper. And here, actually, I would like to introduce my experience. Like when I studied my doctoral course in educational psychology, actually it was in the University of Munich in Germany. So when I arrived in Munich in school, my supervisor, who is a very famous education psychologist named Brian Peckman, and he asked me one thing on the first day. He said, we will have lunch together every day if possible. So I thought like what that means, right? I was wondering. So, and he explained it's not only two of us, but he had a lot of researchers in his lab. So we go all together for lunch, and even it's not like any fancy restaurants. It's Mensa, right? School cafeteria. So I joined that one. On the first day I joined the meeting, the lunch meeting, I was actually shocked, and I was very impressed what I saw. Are you interested in listening to that story? I will tell you what happened. So for the lunchtime, it was not only lunchtime, but there were all kinds of discussions going and coming. You know, for these researchers, they also have their own room, right? Their own office. So they don't see each other all the time. The only time they can meet all together is actually lunchtime. So in this lunchtime, they would like to take advantage of this time a lot. So what they were doing is discussions things like, okay, for my research, I got this result. And then I think about blah, blah, blah about these results. And what do you think? They are asking other researchers' opinions and get some feedback. And also some problems they come up while researching. They say, oh, I got these problems and how we can deal with these issues. And even some cases like, you know, I submitted to this journal, and then luckily I got feedback and I can resubmit my paper after revision. But the one reviewer says like blah, 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 and then he's tackling his result and his discussion. So how can I respond to these reviewers' comments like that? And even discussing future research. So all things actually going on very, very actively, very dynamic. So in the first lunchtime, for me, I actually couldn't say anything. Well, of course, I joined that group just before, right? So I wasn't sure what kind of research was going on, but also maybe a cultural issue. You know, we are not really trained like to talk about our opinions freely, right? That kind of thing. But that day, actually, I decided, or I made up my mind. Oh, I'm gonna try really hard to get myself to this point, right? Freely discuss with others, and also talking about my opinions. Okay. So I'm trying, right? Also, why I'm telling this story, because all the researchers are my colleagues that time, they emphasized that this talk will prime you to write. So once you talk about your research, the words will come easier when you actually write, when you actually sit down to write. So it's like a miracle, they said. So I hope you also experience this kind of miracle after talking to your friends or your colleagues, and then finally when you actually write down things, hopefully your words come easier. And second part is fixed time. So set aside a couple of hours a day, like every day, I mean it, every day. So I usually suggest 3 hours for full-time graduate school students. I think most of you guys are maybe full-time students. I'm not so sure. So 3 hours I suggest. So for 3 hours, actually, these 3 hours include not only pure writing time, but also reading time for your research, right? Also searching for your papers. So including everything, I suggest 3 hours to spend every day. So even if you're unable to write during that time, 3 hours or 1 hour, 2 hours, and do not quit. Use the block of time to format references and refine tables and figures. So many times we don't feel like, oh, I really want to write my manuscript today. Like, of course, in English, not like that. Life is different, not like that. So if you feel like, oh, I don't really want to write anything right now, so I will wait until I get refreshed. Don't do that. Okay? Don't wait for that time. So if you really cannot write something, maybe you have so much headache thinking of many things, then you can stop writing. But instead, you have to use this time, right? For example, formatting references. This one, it's not really headache. It's not a headache. It doesn't give really headache, but still it takes time, right? Formatting references or refining tables and figures. So, so you keep the hours. Of course, the quality of how you spend the time is more important, right? Quality is more important. But first, I think setting up or making our habit first, like spending 3 hours a day, and it's a quality wise, I think should come first, and then the quality issue we can think about later. And the third one is that we have to set a target of 500 words. So if we write our manuscript maybe in double spaced, right, in English, then usually one page has 250 words. So 500 words means approximately like about 2 pages writing, right? So you plan and to do that. If you cannot reach your goal of 500 words a day, then you can maybe spend a little more time till your target is reached. It's up to you. And some people might think like, oh, 500 words is too little for me. Then that's fine. Then you can go this website and then try to make the task a bit more interesting for yourself. And the last one, we have to write stopping to edit. Usually writing a manuscript is compared as a pottery project. Have you made any pot? And when do they stop, actually? People stop until we see the shadow pot, right? And then we wait until it gets dry and refine the clay. This comes later. So if we are stuck because of particular statistics or citation is not handy while we are writing, please don't stop there to check, oh, I gotta go back, check the statistic, or I need to find citation to write. Don't do that. Simply insert the whole placeholder so that you can remember. Maybe you just leave it blank, or you use asterisk, or even highlight in some colors. Just some mark that you know later, right? And then continue writing. So keep your flow. So once you finish maybe one paragraph or even one section, then you can search the file for the placeholder and replace the marks you actually left. Okay. So for some practical tips, okay, I think I have something important to say about this part. So we are gonna have a 10 minutes break. And after the 10 minutes break, I will start from here. And the second topic, use of voice. Okay. So far, do you have any questions? If you have any questions or comments, please leave them here. And then we will see in 10 minutes. Right? See you soon at 2 o'clock. Great job, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, guys, did you get enough rest? Or it was not enough, right? 10 minutes? But let's go on. All right. And I got a really important question here. I want to share it with this question and talk about a little bit before we start the second part. Right. So and thank you for the question, first of all. So as I am new to the research field, this lecture helped me a lot, like to build a strong foundation before starting my research and manuscript writing. Thank you. So we research always have a hypothesis. So what do you think? What do you guys think? This is a really good question and important question to think about.
I think so.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it could be also sometimes there are some cases that we may not be able to set up hypotheses, right? Could be exploratory study when there are no enough previous studies or there are no established theories, then maybe we cannot really set up hypotheses. So first of all, have you learned like how to set up your hypothesis? How can we set up hypotheses? There are many ways, but I would say two big things that we have to consider. First, we need some established theories, right? And then second, we need previous research, previous studies which used or utilized the established theories and then got some results, right? So based on the established theories and also the research findings, which are based on established theories, we need those two things, right, to set up with a hypothesis, to set up hypothesis. But in some cases, we may not be able to set up hypothesis, right? Like I explained. So in that case, could be exploratory study. Then that time maybe you can come up with only research questions, right? Without any hypothesis. So but researchers think if we have some hypotheses, that could be more sound studies, right? Because the having hypothesis means you have strong established theory background and plus some previous research results. So that could be more sound study, but it's totally fine not to have hypothesis if your study is more like exploratory. Okay, so if you have any ideas, any comments, you can actually leave some message here. Okay.
Professor, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
The exploratory study, what do you really mean by that?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for your question. So if we have a hypothesis, that's not actually exploratory study. So for the exploratory studies, that has meaning that this area is not really investigated, right? There are no many previous research, so we don't know yet. In that case, we can start to explore this part, kind of pioneering the research. That time we can go exploratory study. Thank you for your question. Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So any other questions or comments? All right. So you can leave some questions again later and then we
Professor, I have one more question as well.
Sure, go ahead.
So when you, I really don't, I every time confused with the making the hypothesis, to be really honest. For example, I base, when I haven't done any kind of research yet. However, writing thesis in the process, I thought, I understand that the hypothesis will be done based on my assumption, which is connected to the previous theory. Am I right?
That's right. Your assumption, of course, your assumption, but your assumption should be based on strong background, strong previous research, like you said, right? But just I think this will go this way without any strong theory background or previous research. That's not a really hypothesis in research area.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if there is no research, no established theories, and you can come up with some the theory to establish some theory, of course, you can set up your own hypothesis that case, but it's not like a based on established theory background, right? Yeah. Okay. Still confusing, right? I know.
Well, making hypothesis is very kind of tough for me in terms of making it very clear and too niche, like in detail. So
That's right.
that's why I'm struggling, and I wanted to listen your
I
opinion.
totally agree with you. Setting up the hypothesis is not easy, and it takes a lot of time. You gotta read a lot. You gotta get some feedback from others. You gotta discuss these things with your supervisors or colleagues. So setting up hypothesis, actually for me, I tell you my experience, and when I started my education psychology, I mean doctoral studies in education psychology, I didn't have any strong psychology background at that time. So my supervisor told me to read things or research items for 6 months. That's what he said, to come up with some hypotheses. So maybe it could be a little extreme, but like that. That is the very hard process. Also, you need a lot of thinking. You will have also a lot of headache at the same time. Okay. All right.
Well, Professor, while you were reading that research papers, what basically you were paying attention to make a good hypothesis? What were the points that you were taking into consider?
For me, actually, my case is a little different from maybe from you guys. For me, I kind of studied psychology really kind of new that time. So when I read all the papers, I focused on every single, little thing. But I would say maybe you can focus on the literature review, what they wrote, and also, and then maybe also the conclusion part, what they suggest for the future studies. And then you can get some ideas, what kind of directions I can go on for my research, and also maybe what kind of hypothesis I should think about. So that kind of things maybe you can consider. All right, great.
Yes, thank you so
So
much.
thank you so much. And more questions you can ask, leave here. Thank you so much. Great. Okay, some more practical tips. Actually, I already kind of mentioned about the reading. Yeah, so you gotta read a lot, all your topic-related papers. So I don't know if you guys or all of you guys have specific kind of plans, specific ideas, research ideas for your study. Do you have or not? So to come up with your specific topic for your study, reading is very important. And then how to read also important, right? So if you have specific ideas, and that's great. If you don't, that's still great. You have chances. So in that case, even though you don't have specific ideas for your study, you must have some kind of, like a general ideas about what to research, right? Because you are already in the program, that means you want to do something else. So then from there, like the basic idea, what I want to do. And from there, you can find maybe even 2 words or 3 words, or even 1 word is fine. Then you start from that word, okay? So you can find some research papers which have your interested words in the titles or in the abstract. Then you start reading 10 good papers, which include your word, right? And by reading those ones, you will definitely have specific ideas, because you will read a lot of previous research about those about previous results by reading the research itself. And also you can find out, you can get some insight what to study for your what to research in the future, by reading maybe future suggestions, the authors kind of presented, right? So that's why reading is very, very important. And reading never ends. You start reading when you propose your research plan, also when you conduct your study, you read. And when you write, actually, you have to read a lot, even after submitting your paper. And when you get the feedback from reviewers, luckily, then also you have to revise your paper. That time you need to read other papers again to support your opinions. Okay, so please read a lot. And these are some resources you can use. I want to introduce especially this one. So Purdue OWL is run by Purdue University in the States, and it's an online writing lab. So of course, if you are a student, if people are students of this university, they can log in with ID and password, and they can see more details. But this Purdue OWL, Purdue University opens a lot to the public. So you can get a really good resource there. So I also go there often. So maybe today you can visit, and I think you should visit this one, right? Okay, thank you for your attention again. Now we can move to the second topic. What is the second topic today? There we go. Yes, this one, I think. Yeah. Okay, second topic is effective use of voice in scientific writing. Okay. There are two types of voice, right? Active voice and passive voice. And I'm sure you've practiced this grammar point, also changing from active voice to passive voice or vice versa. A lot of drilling maybe. Okay, the outlines has three parts. So first one, passive voice, actives, what they are. And also second one, voice in the scientific manuscript. And final one, oh, sorry. Final one is a very practical one. Uses of passive and active voice, actually. This one is very practical. So first one, passive and active voice. So there is a misconception in scientific writing. I mentioned this in our first session, just a little bit. So this is a misconception. The passive voice is preferred over the active voice because it is the more formal style of writing. So it is true, scientific writing or academic writing we are doing is formal writing, right? So for the formal writing, we should use passive voice. That's a misconception, this myth. But it used to be like that a little bit, I think. Like a formal writing, formal writing, we have to use passive voice a lot. But it's not really true these days. These days, actually, active voice is preferred, almost up to 70%. Because it is directly connected to the clarity issue. Clarity is the most important factor in manuscript writing, I think, most important thing. So to improve clarity, actually, we are studying how to use this voice effectively, okay, like these ones. And I don't think I will give lecture on clarity issue for the 3 weeks, but I'm sure next week I think you have one more workshop day, right? And that time maybe the other lecturer will cover the clarity issue. Anyway, I will mention also clarity a little bit in this voice use. So passive voice is inherently obscure, so it's vague, it's not clear. Okay. And then AMA manual is American Medical Association manual. It says, in general, authors should use the active voice. They just state this one, right? Active voice. Okay, so active voice is generally preferred. And then Nature, they also say Nature journals prefer authors to write in the active voice. Okay? So active voice is actually preferred these days. But of course, when we choose which voice we are gonna use, depends on many things. We have to actually select correctly. Okay, so passive voice is used selectively. So which one we want to emphasize? So for example, do you want to emphasize subject or do you want to emphasize object? Depending on what to emphasize, you have to select either passive voice or active voice. Right. This is a very famous clarity scale. So for the clarity, to improve clarity, active voice is very helpful, much more helpful than passive voice. Then we are going to talk about why, okay? The reason why. All right. So now voice in the scientific manuscript. So the active voice attributes the work to the authors and gives due credit to the authors. For example, this is active voice, right? Active voice usually use a first person singular or the first person plural, like I or we, but also things, not a human being, but things can make active voice as well, right? Good. So in this sentence, the first person plural we is focused, right? Is emphasized as a subject. So here they are giving the credits to themselves, right? We. But getting the due credit, they also have responsibilities. Because we did something, that means we are responsible for these things. So at the same time, responsibility is explained there. And this active voice or passive voice appear throughout the paper. So the examples I'm going to introduce from now on is from this manuscript, this paper. So I guess everybody knows PTSD, right? PTSD syndrome, post-traumatic stress disorder, right? I hope you don't experience, you don't have it right now. Right. So let's take a look at like every section, right, which has this voice form. So in the introduction part, like in red, right, first introduction part. So active voice, you can see active voice here, Kirsten and colleagues demonstrated the intranasal oxytocin. You can read it. And the passive voice is still there. For that case, oxytocin has been used for the induction of labor, right, passive voice. And also in the method section, can you see the tense first? In the method section, result section, what was the main tense? Right, the past tense. So you can see here. So in the method section with this past tense, the active voice is used, right? Also passive voice used. Right? And then in the original section, also past tense. Oh, but this one is a present passive tense, present passive voice, because table you can see, right? In the manuscript, you can really see that. So in this case, exceptionally, we use present tense, but other than that, all past tense. Also pay attention to active voice and passive voice. Or discussion section, we see active voice, right? Our study contributes significantly to our understanding of the therapeutic potential of oxytocin, and passive voice as well. Okay. Our finding is supported. Okay. So look at the examples quickly, briefly. Now, this is more important. Tense of verbs. So the active and passive voice can be used in different tenses. So far, we checked a little past passive voice, right? Also, present passive voice. But there are many tenses we can use in the voice form. So in the present tense. So actually from now on, I want you to join this exercise very actively. So I'm not gonna ask what you wrote, but can you actually get some scrap paper if you do have, and get some pen yourself, and we are gonna practice fun thing. So for the active voice, so we will try to change it to the passive voice, okay? So in vice versa, if we see passive voice, we'll try to change to passive voice form. So based in passive voice, we use be verb plus past participle, right? So if you don't remember any grammar point, that's fine. So we will also do together. So right now here, at least I'm gonna give you 10 seconds so that you can think of how to change this voice to the passive voice using P plus PP. Okay, so I give 10 seconds. Can you think about this one? Subject, verb, object. Time's up. Okay, so did it change? Right. So to change to passive voice, object comes as a subject, right? Here. And then P plus past participle PP. Yeah, this way. So in the present tense. Also present perfect tense, have plus PP, also can be used in both voice form. So in future studies using non-polarized cells have shown. So this could be a little tricky to change to passive voice. You have to find the object first to make the subject. Okay? So here the object is a that clause. So can you try to change to passive voice? 10 seconds again. Okay, good. I know you are doing really hard, right? I know doing very hard. Good. So here the object part, okay? The interaction, they changed even the noun form here instead of interacts. Interaction between T4SS and host cell integrins has been shown. Okay? I think this is the last practice. Past tense. Now here we found bacteria. So this is the object, right? So object will go to the subject. So can you change? Try to change to passive voice. 10 seconds again. Okay, good. So here bacteria is a plural form, right? Bacterium is that singular and bacteria is plural form. Were found, okay, this way. All right, so we just saw briefly exercise, right? What the past voice is, what the active voice. So now this is the actually key things today to use the manuscript. So uses of passive and active voice. So let's review the passive voice and active voice a little bit. So passive voice focuses on receiver, okay? But active voice focuses on doer, right? Action, the actor. So for the passive voice, the emphasis goes on the object, right? So when we changed the active voice to the passive voice, the object goes to the front as a subject, right? Since subject is emphasized, that means in the passive voice term, the object is emphasized, okay? And this passive voice sentence has it shows a weaker subject verb. Because when we make passive voice form, usually the subject is omitted, right, at the end. If we want to use it, we can use by plus objective form, but the many cases subject is deleted, right, omitted. That's why we don't know really like the relationship between subject and verb. That's why it is a weaker. It shows a weaker subject-verb relationship. But the active voice focuses on subject, right? Subject itself, and it has a stronger subject-verb relationship. Right? Because subject is there, subject is not omitted. So subject, verb, and object. So it shows clear structure. That's why this active voice improves clarity. Okay? Since clarity is one of the most important factors in manuscript writing, the active voice is preferred. right? Because active voice improves the clarity because of a strong relationship between subject and verb. Also, when people don't want to disclose who is responsible for the action. For example, here, somebody made this one, but we don't want to mention somebody on purpose. Then you can write a mess made in the kitchen, using past voice. These are considerations for voice use, right? 3 points. So first, when the subject or doer is unknown, or unimportant, or obvious. Well, number 1 and number 3 could be the opposite way, right? Unknown but obvious, or unimportant. In these cases, we have to use passive voice. Okay? Subject is not important, right? So passive voice. For the clarity and emphasis issue, for the better clarity, which voice is used? Right, active voice, right? And also we have to think of emphasis. If we want to emphasize subject, then what voice? Which voice? Right, active voice. But if we want to emphasize object, then passive voice, because this object will go front as a subject, right? And then the sentence structure changes as a passive voice form. Okay. And the third one is storyline. Is the story dynamic or is the story static? Depending on this storyline, we use voice differently. Actually, number 3 part is a little tricky. And this also a little tricky and difficult to follow the rule. Like how can we know this story is dynamic, right? How can we know this story is static? But if you read a lot of papers, also if you actually write your papers, then you can actually get some sense of the storyline. So it takes a little time to follow this rule here, but I think you will do. Definitely you can do that. Okay? So for the dynamic story, we use active voice, right? To move the story forward. Okay? But the static means kind of unimportant, right? If people think this is very important story, then you become very dynamic. Okay? But static, maybe unimportant. And for this kind of information, for this kind of storyline, the passive voice is better for this one. So let's get into the number 1 first. When the subject is unknown, unimportant, or obvious, then we use passive voice. So this is the example when the subject is unknown. So oxytocin is released from the posterior pituitary gland, well, no gland, but gland, pituitary gland into the bloodstream. So oxytocin is a hormone, right, from one of the hormones from posterior pituitary gland. So this one is released. But do you know who releases this oxytocin? Actually, we don't know. That's the answer. So the subject is unknown. That's why the passive voice is used here. Also, for undefined cause and effect, we use passive voice. This means there's no cause. We cannot really see what the cause is for some effect. So in this example, the total RSDI score was significantly reduced in oxytocin-treated patients. So this is an effect, right? Some consequence, some results. But do you know what causes this result in this sentence? So we don't know. So in scientific writing, this passive voice can be used to describe only an effect, right? So it's not clear what the cause is. In contrast, in the active voice, cause and effect is very clear, right? That's why it's good for clarity. So let's look at the example here. So the total RSDI score was significantly reduced in oxytocin. This one is the sentence we just checked, the passive voice. So next sentence is intranasal oxytocin treatment significantly attenuated PTSD symptoms. So this could be a little difficult word for you. Attenuate means same as reduced. That's fine. So here, significantly attenuated p-test, this is the effect, right? Some result, some consequence. But what causes this one? What brought these results? That's the intranasal oxytocin treatment. So this is a cause and effect. So, and also this one, you see active voice. They use active voice. So in the active voice, they show really clear cause and effect relationship. And second one is subject is unimportant. That means receiver is important. Okay. This case, we use the passive voice. So here, disease and oxytocin, and used passive voice, passive voice. Okay. So they are not doers, right? Disease, oxytocin, they are not doers. They are receivers. So, but this writer wanted to emphasize this disease or oxytocin, a receiver. That's why the passive voice is used. And we use actually, we make this common mistake. Maybe you've done it too. You've done it too. So here you see researchers, right? They actually the citation here, maybe year citation. So these researchers mainly tested. So this is what kind of form is this one? Active voice, right? Subject, verb, object, active voice. But in this case, expressing this way in passive voice is much better. Because you know, when we actually mention this author's front as a subject, that means we are emphasizing these authors, right? But when do you emphasize the authors? Usually if the study is really, really outstanding, or maybe very one of the first studies, also very important study in this in the research field, then maybe you want to give some credits on to these researchers, right? Then that time we write the researcher's name as a subject, and then make the active voice sentence, right? But if the research is just one of the research results, then we don't have to mention the researcher's name in the front. Rather, we put the result here first and make the passive voice form and simply cite, you know, their research here. This is much better. So, but I see in doctoral or master students' dissertation or thesis, I see they make these kind of mistakes as well. Even though the study is just one of the previous studies, they actually put the researcher's name in front, which doesn't mean a lot, right? But again, you can of course put the researcher's name in front as a subject if the research is really maybe pioneering or really great study and you want to really emphasize the study, then you can, no problem. Otherwise, it's sufficient to simply cite the papers in the passive voice. So these are the passive voice that you can use, right, for citing the previous research. And I really like these expressions. You will use a lot of these expressions in the discussion. So for me, I have my own writing notes. So I usually also bring these ones so that I can use or the paraphrase in my manuscript. So it is reported and you write some results from the previous study. Also, it is believed. Similar meaning, you can paraphrase this one. It is considered, it is regarded. It was discovered, right? All similar meaning. And then you write the results and at the end, simply cite, okay? That's a really good tip. So examples here in background, it is regarded, right? Passive voice and then just citing. Also in the discussion part is well accepted, some results, citation has been suggested, also in different tenses as well, also citation. And now the subject is obvious. So everybody knows what the subject is. So for example here, so who requires? Who requires? Cell requires, right? This is common sense. Many people may not know about, some people may not know about cells require this the splicing, right, during their transcription process. So here, I have a little question for you. So in this sentence, the passive voice is used, okay, because the subject is obvious. So question for you, who performed resistance exercise in this sentence? Can you find who performed? Yes, individuals, right? So we know from this sentence the individuals perform the exercise. So it's obvious. So we use passive voice here. I think I have 2 more questions for you. Are you excited? So here, which verb? There are 3 verbs that I made bold. So which verb has been used in the passive? Because subject is unknown. But there are 3 cases, right? Subject to is unknown or unimportant or obvious. So for the unknown reason, passive voice is used. Which one? Okay, did you find it? The answer is secreted, right? So this one secreted as a release. Some hormone is released or secreted, same thing. And the authors come from that. I didn't know this one, so I found it, and it is high temperature requirement A, which I'm not so sure what it is. But anyway, this one was secreted in vivo and was found. Okay. So we don't know actually, like a hormone or things like this chemical or something, we don't know who released. So this is the case. The subject's unknown, that's why the passive voice is used. Then what about this case? Found. Who found something? We know, right? The authors. So this is obvious case, right? The story is obvious. What about reduce? Who reduced something? Which one reduced something? Yeah, you see by bacterial infection, right? So bacterial infection reduced something. So this is also the subject is obvious. That's why passive voice is used, right? So now the very important, right? I told several times clarity and emphasis here. So voice is directly connected to clarity. So appropriate choice of voice is important for clarity. So again, since this is very important, I brought it again. This is clarity scale. For the better clarity, for the improved clarity, we use active voice. So let's look at some examples, and then we will change the voice to improve clarity. Okay. So here, active voice here, Kokowska ether have reported that oxytocin reduces HR. Okay, here is the active voice, right? Subject, verb, object. So here, what is emphasized? So these researchers are emphasized, right? In active voice subject. But I don't know if they are really their study is really outstanding, or I don't know if the author wanted, this paper's author wanted to emphasize this Kokowska ether researchers. I'm not so sure. Anyway, we will see that we will try to change to the passive voice for the improved clarity. Okay, and the second one is passive voice. So is increased passive voice. Okay, one more time. Can you try to remember these 2 sentences? Active, passive voice, because we are going to change from active to passive and from passive to active voice. Okay, so from active voice change to now passive voice. So oxytocin has been reported. Okay. And from the passive voice to active voice changed this way. So actually to emphasize oxytocin, they wanted to, the authors wanted to emphasize oxytocin by putting it in the subject area, right? So in the passive form, subject, but here passive form, but the oxytocin here is the main subject in the active voice. So one thing that you have to remember, in the sentence, always subject is emphasized, right? So which word do you want to emphasize? Depending on it, you also have to choose either active voice or passive voice. So passive voice is selectively used to emphasize information, object, right? Because the object goes to the subject, right? To make passive voice form. Right? We also have to always think about where we want to emphasize. Right? So here in this sentence, which word or who is emphasized? Right, it's easy, right? We use the fMRI to examine the neural response in frontal and parietal cortices. This subject is emphasized. But we are going to try to exercise to change sentences according to the words you want to emphasize. So here, subject, use fMRI, this is main object. And this neural response is kind of object of two verbs here to examine something, right? And the last one, frontal and parietal cortices, this is also kind of object of this preposition. Okay? So now we are going to change these sentences in many ways to according to the words you want to emphasize. So again, passive voice, the emphasis is on the object, right? Object goes front to get emphasized. So here this sentence. To emphasize this object, fMRI, if you put this one as a subject, then of course, right? Object goes front, then the whole sentence is changed to passive voice form. And second one, neural response, which is the object of to examine. So goes front, and then was examined. Okay, so passive voice. Also, last one, the object of preposition in, subject, and passive voice. So here in all these sentences are written in passive voice to emphasize the object, right? By putting the objects in the subject position. So in the active voice, we see cause and effect. They are very clear. So if we want to describe some causality, right, to clear relationship between cause and effect, we have to use active voice, as we mentioned before. So you see decreased, intensify, significantly elevated, substantially increased. So these are like main verbs. So before verb or after verb, before you will see the cause, right? This part. So before verb, everything explains cause. And after the verb, it's about effect. So cause and effect, this relationship is very clear in the active voice. And now storyline. Oh, actually, this is number 3. I'm sorry about this one. 3, storyline, the third one. So if the storyline is dynamic, you want to move the story forward, exciting, important, then in that case, we use active voice. But the storyline is static, right? Kind of quiet, very peaceful, maybe unimportant, then could be passive. It should be passive voice. And this needs a little more time for us to get used to. Okay? As I mentioned, that you gotta read a lot, And also you have to try to write in your manuscripts to understand this one better. So in this one paragraph, you see there are seven sentences, right? And here only one sentence, one passive sentence. You can see only one passive sentence. So here you can see the active voice is preferred. And I think this is pretty good the paragraph. And something that we have to remember is that not all verbs can be used in the passive voice. So we call actually intransitive verb in grammatical term, which means these verbs don't need object. Okay, so for example, remain, it doesn't need object. So there's no object in the sentence. In that case, you cannot make passive voice form, right? Because to make passive voice, the object goes front as a subject. But these verbs don't have any object. So it's impossible to make passive voice form. Okay? So you cannot just make like this one. It's a nonsense. We also call this one linking verbs. So these verbs describe the subject, and the examples, there are a lot of linking verbs here. So kind of be verb, becoming, remain, prove. So these verbs, you don't see it was, remained, no, right? It was, remained, you cannot use it. Also, to grow, like I grew up, right? We say I grew up, not saying I was grown up, no, right? It is the linking verb which cannot be used in the passive voice. Also appear, actually Koreans make a lot of mistake. For this one, it was appeared, but it's wrong. It cannot be used as a passive voice form. It appeared, or it disappeared. Also it looked, right? Also it seemed, it sounded like that. So you can remember some of these linking verbs, which cannot be used in the passive voice. Okay, so we are almost done for the second part. So as a conclusion, in conclusion here, so the choice of passive voice and active voice should be selective. Okay? And sometimes the either passive voice or active voice doesn't matter. In that case, at least you gotta be consistent with using one of the voice form. So choice of voice should depend on factors like, subject is unknown or unknown, or obvious and important or unimportant, right? The first thing we have to consider. And second one is about clarity, emphasis, right? And the last one is storyline. And even though I explained this one, I know you are still, you might be confused, or you must be confused here, right? And to use passive, active voice really clearly, and I think this is actually author's role, right? So if authors wants, okay, I want to emphasize this word, or I want to emphasize maybe object or subject. It depends on which word you want to focus, right? So sometimes we don't know actually the author's idea, which one. So that time we cannot really say, oh, this author used should have used maybe passive voice in this sentence. We cannot really say it. So it always depends. I think a lot depends on the author. So I think that's why you should try to write your manuscripts a lot, and then after you try many writing, then you can actually get some really good sense of using, like selecting passive voice or active voice. All right, so this is the end of the second lecture, second topic. So right, how was it for you guys? Was it understandable? Okay, right.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so we will have 10-minute break again. So if you have any questions and comments, of course, and leave them, or you can, of course, voice later. All right. Okay, let's have some break. 10 minutes. We will see you soon. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are you guys back? Are you doing okay? Maybe you can stretch yourself a little bit, right? Okay, only one more hour to go, and I will see you maybe next week again, hopefully. Right. So I got some good question. I actually posted it here. So I have seen some papers or articles that consist of review articles, case report articles, and research articles. Within these three types of articles, what is the best to use as a reference? Also, as a beginner, I'm very confused about differentiating those three types of article. Okay. So about this question, I always others also to think about this question as well. Right. So here, three types of article, review articles. And for example, review articles, you know, the meta-analysis, right? Or some systematic review. So usually for the research, research articles that we are doing, right? Doing some subjects or we have participants, maybe human participants, right? In that case, research articles, but for the review articles, the subjects are the research papers, right? So for the review articles, they check all the research articles in the topic the researchers want to focus on, and then among those research papers, you get the conclusion, okay? So famous one is meta-analysis or systematic review like that. That's review articles. The case report article, these are I think usually in medical area or some pharmaceutical area. I think they also do a lot of case report articles. As far as I know, they focus on, for example, drug interactions, drug reactions, or some side effects like adverse effects on patients. So these are actually, they have special case, right, on the patients. So this is called case report articles. And the research articles, which is most common to us. So like some qualitative studies or some qualitative studies, right? So for me also, I write a lot of the research articles more than review articles. For me, I don't do any case report articles. I don't do any experiments like that. So mostly I work on research articles. Okay, so those things, and I think if yeah, okay. So follow-up question about this one. I also got one more question. So what's the name? Can I say the name here? Anyway, where is it? Can I see phone? Yes, so this person also is wondering. So I think this person is planning to write case report for publication. So when he's wondering which voice should be used in his paper, either active voice or passive voice. So I cannot say the exact voice here. So it is totally depending on how you want to write and which one you want to focus. But the main thing that you can remember is that these days active voice is preferred for the clarity issue. So you can remember that. And also when you write your sentences, you can come back to this lecture material, and then you can try to make things a little better. Okay. All right. I hope this answers your question. All right. So do you have any questions or any comments before we start the last third one about effective abstract or effective the cover letter? Thank you. You're welcome. Right. Okay, then let's get into the last one. So how to write an effective abstract and cover letter. Everyone knows what the abstract is, right? And also cover letter. So when we apply to, some position in the company, when we want to get a job, we write cover letter, right? That time cover letter. But also when we submit our paper to the journal, we also have to write cover letter introducing what our study is. So first we will see the effective abstract first, how to write this effective abstract. So abstract is the one of the most important sections because journal editor will judge your paper by how well your abstract is written. Has anybody actually tried, has anybody submitted the manuscript to journal? Or has anybody published a paper? I'm sure some of you guys already published, right? So when we submit our paper, then the editor checks first, right? So the editor checks, of course, abstract, cover letter, and the main manuscript like that. But first, they see the abstract first, and then judge or assess the quality of the paper. Okay. So in this stage, the editor or editor-in-chief doesn't like the abstract, then he or she will reject, right away. That's called desk rejection. Desk rejection, like a rejection by editor or editor-in-chief. Okay. But the abstract is good enough for their journal, then they will pass your manuscript to the peer reviewers, right, for the next process. So abstract is the one of the key submissions, right, for editor to decide, desk rejection or sending the paper for the next process. So that's very important. See here, editor will reject if the paper or the abstract doesn't have any necessary information and that does not meet the journal's word limitation. This is journal guideline, right? If there are the authors don't follow guidelines, no matter how good the content is, right? It's not, they don't like it, they might reject. And also if the abstract doesn't capture the journal editor's interest, this means the abstract or the manuscript is not in the scope, right? Journal scope, or doesn't follow any journalist aim. Then in that case, of course, rejection. Also, style and precision. This is about writing. So if writing is not good enough, then of course they will reject. So abstract is a summary or overview of the research, and it gives the journal editor or editor-in-chief an idea of what the study is about and why it is important. Also, potential target reader would read the abstract and decide whether to read on. So they read the abstract first, and then they find that, oh yeah, this is interesting. I want to read more, and then they go on to read the full paper. So the abstract outline first, purpose of abstract, which is easy. I think everybody knows. And and next one, abstract examples and some useful expressions. And the last one is tips for abstracts. So for these tips, I will talk about the 10 steps, right, to follow. And if there's a real workshop, and also if we have more time, and it will be a great exercise to actually go through all steps, right? Using your own paper or using your, if you don't have yours, that's good. And others abstract, we can go through all the steps. Then even one time, twice, if we try that one, it is very, very helpful. But unfortunately, we don't have, we cannot do it here. So I want you to make some groups, research group, and then in that group, and I want you to practice even once or twice. Okay, so first of all, like purpose of abstract. So this session, by the way, I had questions, maybe many questions, but you don't have to answer, but at least you have to think about those questions. Okay, so the main job of your abstract is to what? Probably everybody knows, okay? To help anyone that reads it to understand your research. And also a question, what if people only read my abstract? Actually, people only read abstracts a lot. So that's why abstract should be written in an independent manner. That means if we read the manuscript, the abstract, we can picture whole paper. What is gonna be in the full paper, right? By reading the abstract, we have to be able to picture, and that's called independent manner. Next question for you. What do you think is the purpose of an abstract? There are many actually purposes here. So it provides a summary of the paper, and readers can assess the value of the paper, right, by reading abstract. Also, the abstract can develop the reader's trust. So what does this mean, reader's trust? So when we actually find some paper and then we can read abstract, right? Everybody can read abstract minimum. And sometimes if we want to read more a full paper of that abstract, then you may have to pay, right? A lot of cases you pay, otherwise you cannot read the full paper. Maybe if you read through your library, then you can probably read full paper. But some cases you have to pay to read full paper, right? So if the abstract is good enough and I really want to read this paper, then you will pay, right, to read this paper. That means the abstract can develop your trust, right? You are paying money. And the abstract also plays a very important role in manuscript acceptance, right? Especially editor-in-chief, they decide, okay, text rejection or further review. Every year, there are more manuscripts, and that means more manuscripts actually are being rejected. Of course, also are being published, but also are being rejected. And 25% of the rejections, the reason is because of poor abstracts, right? No matter what their, how great the content is, how great the subject topic is, but because of the poor abstract, they get rejections. So the importance of abstract, because it influences whether or not a journal will accept or reject the paper right away, right, by the editor or editor-in-chief, that's rejection. It also influences whether a reader will read the whole paper. Also, if the abstract is good enough, they will read the whole paper, and then they, perhaps they cite the paper, okay? So there is also now H index among researchers. So if your paper is cited a lot on H index, of course, go up. So as a single researcher, it's good to be cited a lot. And the abstract influences that point. And there are 4 types of abstract. So first, descriptive abstract, informative abstracts. And third one is critical abstract. And the last one, highlight abstracts. So among these 4 abstracts, number 3 and number 4, they are not common abstracts. Okay? So we are going to focus on number 1, number 2, descriptive and informative abstracts. So first, descriptive abstracts tell the readers about the content of their paper, and they do not describe the final conclusion. They actually do describe final conclusion, but not a detail, okay? So you understand this way better. And then also word count is usually 100, 250, so they don't write a lot. Even though I mentioned these words, but this is not, they confirmed. This is not totally right, because when we write abstract or manuscript, and when we submit, we always have to follow the journal guideline. Okay? So there is a journal submission guideline. Then among the guidelines, you can see how to write abstract. So abstract part also has their own guidelines. So in the guideline, they explain the word limit, okay, and also other styles. So we always have to focus on the guidelines. And second, informative abstract, it provides information. So it's a little longer than descriptive abstract. And even though it's 250, 300, but it also follows guidelines of the journal you are targeting. Okay? And it includes kind of IMRED structure that we actually learned in the first session, IMRED, right? It shows introduction, material, method, and result and conclusion part. The third one, critical abstract. So criticize somebody's work, right? So studies validity, reliability, completeness in addition to main findings. So usually critical abstract, they have a lot to say, right? Criticize things. So it's longer. And writing critical abstracts. Usually, I think the journal editors ask some expertise in some area to write critical abstracts or critical papers. So not many people are writing critical abstracts. So this is not really common. The last one is the highlight abstract. So these abstracts are written to attract the reader's attention to the study. So as you see, not a true abstract. So highlight abstracts don't cover all the parts from the manuscript, right? So they just try to kind of attract, so kind of catchphrase, something like that, right? So they focus on main things of the manuscript. So since it is not a true abstract, so it is rarely used. So for some journals, they use the word highlight, but in that case, they also have abstract. They have the author should submit abstract plus extra. They have to state highlights of the study, right? Usually using the bullets. Right? But not all journals have the highlight options. So some journals ask for highlights to the authors. So far we saw the 4 types of abstract, but that's a type, but now this is format. So actually this is more common to differentiate, like to talk about the kinds of abstract. Okay, the first one is a structured format, and second one is unstructured format. And you will use these words more often than descriptive or informative. Okay. And also it will be very useful if you remember the structured is similar to informative type abstract. Okay, structured, informative, and unstructured format abstract is similar to descriptive abstract as a type. So try to remember those things. So structured format looks like this one. Is it familiar to you? Maybe if you are aiming some SCI index journal, like in natural science part, then this structured format is more familiar. Okay, so SCI index journal. So it has sections, right? Background, method, results, conclusion. It is similar to IMRED structure, right? Introduction is background, and method, result, conclusion. So it defines sections, and it has full coverage. Since they are separated, right? They are sectioned. That's why it's a little easier for us to follow, right? This is a structured. So look at the appearance. And this one, in one paragraph you see, this is unstructured paragraph, unstructured abstract. So usually one paragraph, just from looking, it is not clear structure. But of course, inside they are dividing, right? Introduction, method, so you can follow those things, even though they are not clearly visually structured. So this kind of abstract, if we are from social science department, social science field, you will be familiar with this kind of form, right? So usually SSCI index journal, in those journals, you can see this unstructured type abstract. So for me also, now I'm actually trying to publish papers in SCI Index Journal. But before I moved to SCI, like the nursing area, I was in education psychology discipline. So that time I was trying to publish my paper in SSCI Index Journal. That time I was very familiar with this abstract, unstructured format. But now I'm familiar with the structured format because I'm trying to submit my papers to SCI Index Journal. So depending on your disciplines or your field you are in, you will use different format, right? Or journals, unstructured or structured format. So what makes a good abstract? Another question for you. Are you ready to think? What makes a good abstract? So good abstract is, there are so many factors here, right? It's expressed in coherent and concise and independent manner. We talked about this one. And what is coherence in writing? We say coherence a lot in writing, but what is coherence actually? I would say the writing makes sense, but something makes sense, then we say there is coherence in writing. So to make things make sense, it should have some logical connection or logical connections or transitions, smooth transitions between the words, between the sentences. Okay, it does not present for information that is not included in the main paper. Of course, right? The abstract is a summary of the whole paper. So we shouldn't put the new information in the abstract. Also, it is in the introduction, body, conclusion format, right? Even though it could be not clearly structured if the abstract is unstructured, but still there should be introduction, body, conclusion part you can see, right? In one paragraph. There are common mistakes. So holding back significant points or information. We always have to remember that abstract is not a mysterious story. It is a fact, right? So we have to show significant points or information in abstract. Don't hide them. And lacking of balanced coverage. Yeah, this is not good. So this means, you know, the like inlet structure, introduction, method, result, conclusion, right? These sections, in these sections, should be balanced, right? Sometimes introduction is too much or method is too much. That's not balanced, right? We have to think about the balanced coverage from all sections and include references. We should not include citations, any citations in abstract, right? Of course, we can mention some paper or even some researcher's author name, but we don't cite in the abstract. Anyway, we are going to cite these ones in the manuscript full paper, but not in abstract. Just gotta think about length. Usually this length, but depending on the guidelines, right? So we gotta follow the guidelines and use the same sentence for the first line of the abstract and the first line of the introduction. Don't do this. Yeah. When we look at the steps later, one of the strategy that is that we actually select some sentences from the main manuscript. So for example, to write the first part of an abstract, we choose some summary part or some key phrases or key sentences for introduction, right? Well, of course, we choose it, but still we don't write the same sentence. The content should be same, but sentence should look a little different. Also, we don't write abbreviations, symbols, or acronyms. If we want to use this acronym or abbreviations, then first we have to use the full term, and then we can use. But it is not preferred to use them in the abstract. Also, we have to have always keywords. Okay, some examples, some introduction, the instructional guidelines. But this one has very simple guidelines how to write abstract, this journal. So abstract must not exceed, see here, there are words, the word limit, also background, key result, things like that. And this journal has a little more specific guidelines how to write abstract. So for example, no more than 250 words, right? So word limit here, background, method, result, conclusion. And this journal gives very, very specific instructions or guidelines, right? It says structured abstract. And also, you have to write objectives, or design, settings, very, very specific, right? So we have to follow abstract, when we write the abstract, or the guidelines, we have to follow guidelines. So another question time. So look at this abstract. I think this abstract is pretty good. So I brought it here. So what type of abstract? You don't have to try to understand this content right now, but just from looking, what type of abstract is this? 5 seconds. Right, descriptive, right? So descriptive, you can think descriptive is similar to unstructured abstract, right? So this pair abstract, I found preposition and prepositional phrases and conjunctional adverb, I would say. So this paragraph is very smooth, and the trend shows very smooth transitions and logical connections. So it's a good abstract, I think. So I thought about why it is good abstract. Later, you can actually check, you can analyze by yourself, but here I provide this point why this was a good abstract. So it began with an introduction, quick introduction, and the body describes the scope of research, also conclusion provide information about the main results and implications there. And the word limit, yeah, it means word count limit. Or it is the introduction, body, conclusion format. Since that was unstructured or descriptive abstract, so it was not clearly sectioned, right? It's not structured like that way, but still, if you look at the content, you can divide the actual introduction, body, conclusion. So it is written this way, which is good. And the last one is, I think, very important. So consistent flow is maintained. There's smooth transitions using, preposition and prepositional phrases or conjunctional adverb. It's a good transition. You can see, you can read very smoothly. And now this one, look at this format. So what type of, did you already check it? Sorry about that. What type of abstract is this? Yeah, right, informative or structured format, right? Probably it's easy to remember structured. You see introduction, background, method, result, conclusion. So this structured format abstracts is different from the previous one, right? Descriptive or unstructured, the abstract. So what is different? So this structured format is organized in red structure, right? So in introduction or background, method, discuss the result or conclusion format. Also a little more detail. And also, I think this was also pretty good abstract. So why? Yeah. You can also analyze later by yourself, but I explain here quickly. And it provides sufficient background and introduction to the area of research. And also it describes the method used and presents a result in a capsule format. Okay? Capsule format. Also simple format, similar word. So capsule format or simple form, if you look at this one, it is kind of in red structure. They use different terms sometimes. So in red structure, introduction, method, so capsule format. Also, it means the word limit communicates the message in a simple form using the section divided. Now, there's innovation. Sometimes there's innovation papers, right? And not all the journals get that kind of innovation paper. So if you do some kind of innovative research or innovation studies, something new, like in your field, totally new, and then you can try to find some journals which publish the innovation focused paper, right? So for those papers, they also use innovation focused approach abstract, but this is not common, right? But I think it's good to know. So this kind of abstract write about, okay, I did this and I learned that, and I think that means. So this part usually, I did this part, but it is actually the introduction and method part. And next part, I learned that. That means we got this result, okay? And the last part, that means. So this part a little mixed. You can see some results, also some interpretation about the results, right? So this means here result or the discussion or some implications can go with this part. And the next one is useful expressions for abstract. So I'm giving some examples here, but for your own research, for own your topic, you have to tailor these expressions, right? For the first sentence, maybe you can talk about growing interest in your research area, or wide interest, or great importance, right? That's why you are also doing this research. And also about the current state of knowledge or practice, these kind of expressions, and also phenomena, right? Common finding, elaborate system, many rich source. So you have to tailor these expressions into your paper. So now this is the last part of abstract writing, and it's most practical part. So tips for abstract. So before we start, I want to say that by the time we write abstract, I think we have to phrase ourselves a lot, and we should be very proud of ourselves, because we write the abstract last, right? So we plan research, and then we conduct research, we write research, and then finally we wrote from the introduction and to the conclusion part, right? Of course, go back introduction later, and then finally we can write abstracts. So that means you are almost done, right? And then you have to praise yourself a lot, because you went through all difficult parts, and then this writing abstract is the last step before you actually submit your papers to the journal, okay? So that could be a strong motivation to write abstract. And second step is have to write the concise versions of background. So from the background or introduction in your main text, your manuscript, full manuscript, you have to select, right, some concise version or summary part. And step 3, by the way, actual writing abstracts is gonna be done in step 5. Okay. Then what do we do after we write all abstract till step 5? I will tell you later what we really do. The leftover 5 steps. So these steps from background, and next step now from the background, but now from the method section, we select key phrases and sentences. And step 4, now step 4 result section and conclusion section, we also select key phrases and sentences, okay? Then you will have some collected key phrases or sentences, right, from all parts. Of course, you may ask, how can we select key phrases, sentences? That's a good question. It might be very difficult if you have to select key phrases or sentences from other researchers' papers. But once you write your own paper, right, and then it wouldn't be that difficult to choose key phrases, sentences from your paper. What do you think? So I think like when you write your own sentences and you know which one is the main sentence or which sentences I want to emphasize. I think so. So as long as you write your own manuscripts, I think writing or to write abstract, selecting this kind of key phrases, sentences may not so difficult. I don't think it's gonna be so difficult. So far, step 4, we have now collected the key phrases, right, or sentences. Now in step 5, we have to arrange those sentences and phrases according to the guidelines, right? Your journal guidelines. Maybe you have to put headings. If the journal wants you to write structured format, then you have to do the headings, right? And if your journal you are targeting wants kind of unstructured format abstract, then it should be organized. The sentences should be organized in a single paragraph. When you actually organize the sentences, you have to think about paraphrasing itself. You shouldn't write exact same sentences, right? At least you have to paraphrase. Okay, the content should be same. The sentences should look different. So until now, we are already done writing abstract. So from next step, what do we have to do? Every part actually the checking part. So in step 6, we have to make sure your abstract doesn't contain new information or abbreviation, undefined abbreviation, citation. Okay, check. And then step 7, also after checking, you have to remove some unnecessary information. Also check the flow. Okay, are they smoothly connected? Also, are they using some kind of the prepositions, right, for the better flow or logical connections? And next step was checking consistency between the paper and abstract. And next one, ask your colleagues, okay, your peers or your supervisors, and then get some feedback. And then final one, you have to reread your instructions of your journal you are targeting. Okay? Also make sure the word count, also the abstract type, right? Headings or style like that. Okay? And these are 10 steps you have to follow. So gotta remember, so we have to read guidelines again, count your words, and this one I want to focus on this one a little bit. So if you already choose the journal you are aiming at, you have to find some recently published papers, right, in that journal, right? You have to read minimum 5 and then find out how they actually presented the abstract or even the whole manuscript, okay? So you can check some trend, maybe even some topics which are popular in this journal these days, right? You can find out those things. So please do this one. Find a piece for the abstract. And you can read this one. Yeah, always this one for better writing. There's an easy and logical flow with good transitions between sections. Don't forget this one. All right. Okay, so far I talked about abstract part. Now for the 10 minutes, now we are focusing on the cover letter. So usually editors look at your paper, these things. So they look at cover letter, title, abstract. But usually till here, the editors look at this part the most. Of course, abstract is the most important key section, but also cover letter is important. Then what is a cover letter? What is a cover letter in manuscript writing and when submitting? Cover letter is a letter introducing your manuscript to the editor. Okay? So a cover letter initiates a dialogue between the authors and the editors and serves to whet the appetite of the editors. So this is a great chance to explain your research directly to the editor. So don't miss out this opportunity. You know, some journals, they might not ask cover letter, or they even say cover letter is optional when you submit your paper. But no matter what, if the cover letter is optional or not, I strongly recommend submitting cover letter together. Most journals, of course, ask cover letter, but if you submit to journal which doesn't require a cover letter, but still cover letter, please submit together. So these are components of cover letter. Not every journal has some guidelines for cover letter. But many journals don't have some guidelines for cover letter. So I'm explaining the general components of cover letter. But if you submit some journals and the journal has shows some guidelines for cover letter, then follow those guidelines. Right? In general, in the cover letter, we write title of the paper and corresponding author details, right? The corresponding author is submitting the papers, right? And then also cover letter, they write cover letter. And it should include a short summary of your findings and importance of your study. And this part could be similar to some abstract content, but it's different from abstract. You don't write every details like you wrote in abstract. Maybe just major strengths of your study, 3 sentences may be enough. Right? Rather than this one, number 3 is very important. But actually we are missing this part. We are not writing this motivation a lot, but the editors are interested in this part. Means why you are actually submitting to our journal. You know, for your research, there are many other journals, but why do you submit to our journal? The editors like to know about the reason so that's why they like the information about this one. So to write this motivation why you are submit to this journal, you can refer to some journals, you know, your journals journal aim or journal mission statement or some scope. You can read those parts and then you write a little bit about them. And now we call COI, right? Conflict of interest. So you also mentioned no COI, right? But usually this one goes on title page, but some cover letter, some journals actually ask about this information, okay? Or usually when we submit our paper in the submission system, they also, there is some section that you have to state, okay, no conflicts of interest. This means our research is conducted objectively, right, or fairly. That means here. And next one, there are 2 sentences we shouldn't forget. We have to always include these 2 sentences. So it's about manuscript is not under consideration for publication by another journal. That means when we submit our paper, we have to aim only one journal, okay, only one journal. And if we get our paper rejected, it's rejected by that journal, then finally we can think about other journals and choose also one journal and submit, okay? And the second sentence we have to include is that all authors agree to submit it to the journal, okay? Authorship issue. But of course, if the author is only one person, then you don't have to write this sentence, second sentence, right? And also sometimes they also ask, do you prefer some reviewers, recommend some reviewers, or even non-preferred reviewers they ask. And this one is usually the system, but not all the journals asking recommending some reviews from authors. Also, some journals ask ethical approval, but this one usually is written in the method section, ethical consideration part, right? Okay, so there are some template for you. So here, your name, affiliation, where you your university. So editor-in-chief, please check the name of the editor or editor's name, write down their names, and also title of article, journal name. This is original and has not been published elsewhere, right? This is one of the 2 sentences that should be included. Also, this is significant because here, they explain the motivation why they actually chose this journal, right? Because blah, blah, blah. So here you can check journal's aim and score, okay? Significance, and we have no COI. Yeah. Oh, but one thing is missing here. If there's only one researcher, then it doesn't matter. But if that means that co-authors, right? There are co-authors, then you should include this sentence as well. Okay? So another sample here. So you see, this is editor's name. But it can go actually. I don't actually write this part, but you can write too. It depends on the researcher. But you need the date because it's a letter. Okay. Dear Professor or dear Editor-in-Chief, Dr. Schmidt. And here title and journal name is here. Well, usually journal name goes in the first paragraph here. And there's an important 2 sentences here, right? The previously enrolled simultaneously in whole or in part has been submitted as well. So this means we submitted our paper only to this journal. And both authors have read and approved the final version. So author, agreement here, and importance and reviewers. And this is the last sample. Actually, this was written by me when I was in when I was in Munich, actually, at that time. No, actually, I came back to Korea at that time. So this one, when I look at this one, this cover letter now, I want to change. I didn't do a good job here, but fortunately, this paper was published in the Social Psychology of Education, which is one of the SSCI paper. So can you find quickly? I will give some hint here. Find here, something is missing here. And then that mistake I never make again, because that is so important thing that I have to include. Okay, so let's take a look at together. So I wrote date, and I found the editor-in-chief name, and the title, journal. I wrote 2 important sentences, right? This manuscript has not been published and is not under consideration by any other journal. So solely to this journal I submitted. And all authors listed in the byline have agreed to submission of the manuscript. So author agreement. I think I did pretty okay. But when I look at this part, I realized so similar to the abstract. Even though I emphasized some significance of the manuscript, but I didn't have to write this whole thing. So I don't do it anymore this way. And one more very important thing I missed was that, the motivation of why this journal. There are many the educational psychology journals, right? But why did I choose social psychology of education? That is missing. So for you guys, when you write cover letter, don't miss out the motivation and also these 2 sentences. Okay, all right. That's the end of this session here. So do you have any questions or comments? And how was it? Okay. So are you guys okay to finish now?
Yes.
Yeah, you did a great job, and thank you so much for listening. And I'm sure
Thank
you are coming back next week, right? Next week, Friday. And if you do have some questions, you can bring, of course, and then any comments, right? We will discuss them first, and then we start. Okay, great. So thank you so much again, and
you, Professor.
TGIF, right? Thank God it's Friday. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. 고맙습니다. 감사합니다.